Welcome to Bad at Goodbyes. Each week on our show, we spotlight species from the IUCN Critically Endangered Red List. These are plants and animals with decreasing populations, nearing the edges of extinction. We'll share species research, information, and conservation proposals, and then we'll spend part of the show opening a space for contemplation and awe. We'll perform a soundscape of gentleness, of reflection, of delight, and maybe of grieving. Without conservation activity and significant societal shift, many of these species may not survive the 21st century. So perhaps we might acknowledge their journey, the moment of our attention, a recognition of our kinship, and with a commitment to personal and systemic change. Thank you for listening. On today's show, we consider the Enigma Moth. The Enigma moth is a critically endangered insect native to Kangaroo Island off the southern coast of Australia. Its scientific name is Aenigmatinea glatzella, and it was first described in 2015. The Enigma moth is monotypic, meaning it is the only species in its genus. The only Aenigmatinea is our Enigma moth, singular, enough, unlike other moth, to warrant its own category. And they are an ancient species, with a lineage that branched off very early in the evolutionary history of moth and butterfly, likely during the Mesozoic era, over 200 million years ago. Enigma moth are so tiny, about 1/4 of an inch long with 1/3 of an inch wingspan, so like the size of your pinky fingernail. They have a wildly vibrant appearance. Their wings, 2 forewings and 2 hind wings, are covered with metallic yellow, gold, and purple iridescent scales that appear to glitter in direct sunlight. And their wings are fringed with unusual, feathery, hair-like scales. Their head is yellow and bald. This is a little uncommon too. It is not covered with scales, save for a few stringy, wispy scale patches. They have 2 short antennae near the front of their head, 2 dark eyes, one on each side of their head, and basically no mouth parts. They do not have mandibles, jaw, or a proboscis, the tongue-like structure we find in most moths and butterflies. They do not have a digestive system. The adult Enigma moth does not feed. So to understand how that works, we need to explore the entirety of their life cycle. In late September to late October, Enigma moth lay their eggs under the leaves of the southern cypress pine at the very tips of new growing branches. When the eggs hatch, the larva burrow essentially eats its way through the tree's new soft green tissue into the stem. And there it stays. The larvae have no legs and are incapable of locomotion. The larva does have a mouth, though, and spends roughly a year protected inside the growing stem, feeding on the southern cypress pine's internal tissues, specifically the underside of the bark, which is slowly growing around the larva. And while this sounds like it might be severely detrimental to the tree's health, let's recall how tiny we're talking. A single instance of grazing by like a goat or a rabbit would consume more plant tissue than our Enigma moth larva would in like the whole year of its development. So the larva is in the stem, feeding, growing, storing energy reserves, and after about 12 months, October of the following year, it pupates and metamorphizes, then breaks out through the pine's bark, emerging as a fully formed adult Enigma moth. A fully formed adult Enigma moth that has only 24 hours to live. They must discover flight, find a mate, attract that mate, copulate, and lay eggs, all in roughly one day, before their stored energy reserves run out and they die. This is an evolutionary strategy refined to like fundamental components. No need for complex feeding and digestive systems, no need for social or mate bonds, no need for parental care, no need for the larva to even have legs. This is remarkably streamlined. And if you're like me and perhaps still holding some skepticism about the efficacy of this life cycle adaptation, let's remember it has been working for the Enigma moth for at least 200 million years. In the dream, to be present to the urgency of living, to, at least in the periphery of my mind, always be grappling with the deep unlikelihood of our existing at all. of our planet, a planet of water and breathing and a protective magnetosphere, a planet where I have lips and lungs and can tell you I love you. A planet where a tiny moth at the bottom of the world every October carries a few 100 million years of history into its first and only day. The odds are insurmountably stacked against this, and yet I am here, and I can sing, and my kin can germinate after fire, can swim aside magma in the ocean's depths, can regenerate their tail. My kin can fly. For me, this is not the consequence of God or gods or the designs of fate, but it is, for sure, a miracle. In the dream. The Enigma Moth is native to Kangaroo Island. Kangaroo Island is a 1,700 square mile island about 10 miles from the Australian mainland in the Great Australian Bight. This is a large oceanic bay off the coast of South Australia. The Enigma Moth is found in 3 locations in eastern Kangaroo Island, only in and near stands of southern cypress pine. The moth only lays eggs on, and its larvae only develop in this single species of tree. The southern cypress pine, too, is an ancient species, with evidence in the fossil record dating from roughly 35 million years ago. So the moth and the tree have a really long co-evolutionary relationship. And today, the Enigma moth is wholly reliant on the southern cypress pine for survival. And so our moth's range is small, confined to these 3 stands of southern cypress pine near the Kangaroo Island coast, a range that is less than 25 square miles in total. This eastern region of Kangaroo Island is a varied landscape with developed agricultural land to the north and substantial blocks of untouched native vegetation in the south. Green expanses and dramatic rocky coastal cliffs interspersed with sandy beaches. This is a Mediterranean climate with summer highs averaging in the upper 70 degrees Fahrenheit and winter lows in the low 40 degrees Fahrenheit. The island sees roughly 25 inches of rainfall per year. The Enigma moth shares its island home with southern cypress pine, little penguin, southern sea heath, silver banksia, Kangaroo Island oak bush, streaked arrowgrass, shiny bog rush, jewel beetle, Kangaroo Island assassin spider, white-bellied sea eagle, golden whistler, restless flycatcher, little raven, marbled gecko, limestone saw sedge, Kangaroo Island glossy black cockatoo, coast vanflower, tamer wallaby, tiny starbush, smooth rice flower, wedge-tailed eagle, Kangaroo Island kangaroo, and many, many more. Because the Enigma moth was just described a decade ago, we have an incomplete record of the threats that have led to its population decline. But because of its existential reliance on the southern cypress pine, we can confidently hypothesize that human habitat encroachment and destruction, specifically land clearing for agriculture, are a primary cause. Today, continuing development of roads and infrastructure is not only reducing available habitat, but also fragmenting the remaining stands of southern cypress pine, which then isolates the subpopulations of Enigma moth from one another, limiting potential genetic diversity. Human-induced climate change, and specifically the increased severity of wildfire resulting from global warming, is an imminent threat. In 2019-2020, a massive bushfire devastated vegetation across Kangaroo Island, though fortunately it did not reach the eastern regions of the island and the Enigma moth's habitat. But because of the moth's extremely limited range, a single out-of-control wildfire could potentially destroy the remaining stands of southern cypress pine, likely driving the Enigma moth to extinction. Fortunately, some of the Enigma moth's habitat is on protected land. One subpopulation lives mostly within a heritage agreements site. This is a special arrangement where private property is protected and stewarded with local government collaboration, operating similarly to like a protected nature reserve. The governmental org Natural Resources Kangaroo Island has initiated a public awareness campaign, including a citizen science program encouraging locals to report sightings of the Enigma moth. And there are broad, active native species and native habitat, private and governmental conservation programs across Kangaroo Island. These programs, though not directly focused on the Enigma moth, will still likely benefit the species, protecting habitat and reforesting indigenous vegetation like their southern cypress pine. Nevertheless, the Enigma moth has been considered critically endangered on the IUCN Red List since 2021, and their population is in decline. Our most recent counts estimate that less than 3,000 Enigma Moth remain in the wild. Information for today's show about the Enigma Moth was compiled from Enigma Moth Fact Sheet, Landscape Board, South Australia, from the IUCN, from Flora of Australia, Volume 48, from Austral Entomology, Volume 57 and Volume 61, from Systematic Entomology, Volume 40, Number 1, from the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, from National Geographic, January 2020, and from Wikipedia. And so now I would like to improvise some music in hopes of holding space to be in contemplation of the other lives with whom we share our Earth. I do not intend to put meaning upon or extract meaning from the Enigma Moth. Instead, I hope this music can be a simple expression of my awe for other life. So I will pause in this space of sound and reflection, and I warmly invite you to join me. I honor the life force of the Enigma Moth. I will commit its human name to my record. I am so grateful to have shared time on our planet with this remarkable being. I lament the ways in which I and my species have harmed and diminished this species. I grieve. So in the name of the Enigma Moth, I pledge to reduce my consumption, my carbon footprint, my wastefulness. I pledge to acknowledge and attempt to address the costs of both my actions and inactions. I pledge to resist the harm of plant and animal kin and their habitats by individuals, corporations, and governments. I forever pledge my song to the witness and memory of all life, to a broad celebration of biodiversity, and to the total liberation of all beings. This has been Bada Goodbyes. Thank you for listening. Until next time, let's take care of each other and all of our kin.